All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're about to get started with our educational panel. My name is Nikki Gray. We're going to start off by introducing our panelists. So let's start with Mandisa. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
My name is Mandisa Johnson. I have about 10 years of experience teaching in Atlanta. I started teaching Spanish at Drew Charter School. Also did hands-on Atlanta AmeriCorps and taught in the pre-K classroom and special needs classroom, as well as I taught in Reggio Emilia School, the Willow School, from infants to 1-year-olds.
All right, thank you. Stephanie, I see your picture, so let's go with you. Would you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Stephanie Conley, and I am currently the academic director, the director of academic affairs for Seven Pillars Charter School in Clayton County. I've been an educator for the last 18 years, all of which in the Metro Atlanta area.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We know you had a family member to pass away, so you're back home on your way home. So we still appreciate you joining us. All right, Renata, let's go to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Renata Goldsmith, and I've been in education for 16-ish years. My kind of expertise is with K through 2 in reading and writing. I'm a part of an intervention program called Reading Recovery, which works with kids who are performing below grade level in reading and helps to get them back to grade level or accelerate them above grade level, because we know how important reading is. I also work with professional development and coaching K through 2 teachers, helping them kind of improve their skills. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. All right, Dionne, you're up next.
Hello, my name is Dionne Burnett, and I am a school counselor in Fayette County. I started my initial counseling experience was 1 year at an elementary school in Cobb County, but ever since then I've been in Fayette County.
All right, thank you, Dionne. Let's go with Eddie.
Hey everyone, my name is Ed.S. Johnson. I have about 20 years in education. I've been teaching since 2001. I'm currently the climate and culture support teacher and the PBIS coach at the upper elementary school. We changed our name, the upper elementary school at 5th Avenue in the city schools of Decatur. And what I do is I just help parents and students feel connected to the school and make sure our school climate is still positive, even though we're virtual. There's still creative ways that you can do that. And I'm just glad to be here.
All right. And last but not least, Shavanda.
Good afternoon. I am Shavanda Toomer. I have 20 plus years experience, all in Fulton County schools. I am currently a high school administrator. I have worked in the area of special education, teacher mentorship and coaching, all levels, elementary, middle, and
Oh no. Okay, she'll be back. Yeah, you froze for a minute.
did it?
Shavanda, so we heard some of it, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, yep.
Do you need me to repeat anything?
We heard, the last thing we heard, you were a high school administrator. That's about the last thing we heard clearly.
Okay. Okay. I have over 20 years experience in Fulton County schools, from special education to elementary, middle, high school administration, and currently serving as a high school assistant principal.
All right, thank you. And I will be our moderator for the conversation. My name is Nikki Durr. I have 19 years of experience in elementary education mostly, about 95% of that. I'm super excited about our time together. This was super important for Mosaic Church to do that, as we know the needs of our church members and just needs of people all across this country of really trying to figure out how to navigate virtual learning. And so with that, we're going to start off with some questions for our panelists. Then we will also be taking questions from the chat. So if you have questions, please put those in the chat, and we're going to save time at the end so that we can address those questions. So I want to start off with just talking about when COVID really hit. I think the last day a lot of people were in schools was March 13th. And I think most of us remember that last Friday of being in school and then having to pivot and shift to some kind of way of virtual learning. And so unfortunately, I believe because it moved so fast, a lot of parents were left with a little trauma about being shifted into a home teacher, homeschooling. I've seen all the memes, I've seen all the posts of whatever, but I want to talk about like what thinking or strategic planning has gone into this school year to ensure that we won't have a replica of what happened in March. So anyone can start. Like, what are some of the things that has just been behind the scenes to make this a smoother transition for everyone?
I'll jump in. At the high school level and within my district, comparing our end for spring 20 and preparing for the new school year, there has been a tremendous amount of focus on ensuring that we are able to protect the academic integrity of our students. In March, we were focusing a lot on compassion over compliance. So, and moving forward, we plan, again, meeting on Zoom almost every day, several times a day, trying to ensure that we
We're losing you again, Shavanda.
Support for students as we move forward.
Yes. Who else would like to? I see Dionne, you'd like to jump in?
I was going to say, I think we did something very similar on the middle school level. I would say from a parent of a child in a different system in Cobb County, and as an educator, working as an educator in middle school, that I can see that all school districts have been planning. And so with us, we have a platform that we knew we were moving toward. So we went and just they pushed as far as our planning back, making sure that we were prepared with Schoology, making sure that our students knew that the expectations were going to be different this time, and the attendance, and even with being a counselor, we are making sure that we are holding parents and students accountable, especially in regards to virtual learning. We're just making sure that we are trying to make sure that they have to let them know that they have to attend and be present, and that this is a lot different than it was when we started in March.
Yeah, we've in our district, I'm in elementary education, and I think we're prepared just in case, because we have been working very hard on our virtual like systems and the way kids interact virtually, and teaching kids how to interact virtually and how to learn virtually. It's a much different thing than learning in person. So let's just say we go back, right? And then there's another outbreak. We have all the systems and everything in place. Kids know how to access the work. We can just kind of pick up right where we left off. So, and like Dionne was saying, I think a lot of systems have just done that. I think we'll always have that now. I think that'll be a contingency plan for all districts going forward.
No matter what the emergency.
Absolutely.
All right, Renata and then Stephanie.
I work for Gwinnett County Schools, so it's a very large school district, and there was lots that went into preparing for this go round. Like everybody was saying, in the spring, it was a lot different. This time, you know, a lot of parents wanted a more structured school day. So there was a lot that went into just the equity and getting everyone resources with laptops, getting companies to step up and provide free hotspots for families that needed those resources. Teachers, we in Gwinnett County, we added extra 10 days for planning to get geared up for what we were asking teachers to do this time around. And also just trying to plan lessons that are synchronous and asynchronous so that kids are logging on for live lessons and they do get that teacher student feel. They do hear your voice, they do see you, but for families that are in different situations or have a lot of children and all can't be on at the same time, these lessons are accessed at whatever time you can do them, but you're still held accountable for all assignments being turned in. And if you need extra support, there are office hours for you to contact your teacher to get that support.
All right, Stephanie, you want to add our final word on that question?
So one of the great things that we were able to make sure that we offered our students was access to a lot of different resources in order to help support them. So that was one of the things that we strategically sought out over the summer to help support our scholars. When, just like we stated, March 13th was the day that a lot of us, that was our last day in schools. And so it was a really easy transition for our students because the majority of their curriculum is already online. So when we had to make that big shift and pivot during that time, it was a little bit easier for our scholars to jump right in and our teachers to jump right in. But when we came back this fall, our 7th graders picked up the ball, no problem. Our 6th graders had a little bit of trouble. And so that's where a lot of our focus is for right now with our 6th grade parents and our 6th grade scholars. But we really took a lot of time this summer as a leadership team to really think about what would be necessary in order to make sure that all of our scholars had what they needed to be successful. So we actually packed science kits and math kits for our parents to pick up so that those lessons that require those items, they would be able to have those at home. So we thought beyond just like computers, because that was one of the main big pushes, and textbooks, but we also thought about what were some of the other needs that our scholars would have with their assignments, and we really made a big push for that.
Yeah, I believe there was a lot of intentionality made because we learned lessons from the spring. And so there was a lot of intentionality, making sure that students had access, make sure that we thought about not over, in a typical school year, you already have summer slide, that time between when school ends and school starts, but we have summer slide on top of COVID slide. And so I know, there's just been a lot of intentionalities from educators to really try to address the needs of students. And so I want parents to really just feel comfortable to know, like, there was just a lot of work. Teachers and schools are working harder now than they probably have worked when they were in the building physically, just to address all the things that our students need now. So with that, I want us to shift to how can families support at home? So, and I'm gonna start with Mandisa. So she does preschool age, before kindergarten age students. And let's just walk our way all the way up to high school to really think about what role do schools really want families to play when it comes to virtual learning? I know a lot of people like they've now taken on this hat of teacher, but is that really the role that we as educators in schools really want families to play? So let's start with Mandisa, then we'll move up to Renata and Eddie with elementary. We'll have Stephanie and Dionne talk about middle, and then we'll end with Shavanda with high school.
Okay, I just want to start by saying right before COVID hit, I started another job as an after school director. So I technically wasn't in the preschool, but during COVID from my co-teacher, I was allowed to like attend some of the Zoom, the virtual meetings. So what I would say how families could support is if, you know, if kids, you know, wanted to participate in like some of the virtual stuff, maybe not having them on as long, because it is like, you know, an attention span thing, especially with the little ones. Before I left, I was teaching the kids that had just turned 2. So a lot of them were like very confused in regards to like seeing their teacher on camera and seeing their friends on camera. So kind of like differentiating between the two. And then like if kids don't, I also like FaceTime with a lot of my old students. And there was one particular student that after a while they were over it, not trying to like enforce them or force them to do things virtually, because it could again be the attention span thing.
Absolutely. All right, let's move to elementary with Renata and Eddie.
Okay, from a K-2 perspective, we actually are just wanting parents to be a support, because teachers are professionals who've gone to college and we've learned how to do this. We've gone through so many professional developments, perfecting our skills, and we know that parents just don't have those skills. They don't have what they need to really do this well, and they're also working full-time jobs. I think one of the most beneficial things that you can do as a parent at home is just to be a support. Make sure your child is up and ready for their lessons, that you've done just your part as a parent. Be involved, know what's going on, read the emails that come home from the school. If you have I know which has been a really big concern for K-1 parents who are virtual, is just they're worried about their child reading because they don't know how to teach a child to read, understandably, and they're worried that however long this could go on, that their child could potentially be, you know, significantly harmed. My response to that is we will make it through this time period, but you can always read to your child. That goes so far. I can't even tell you. Constantly read to your child. And introduce them to audiobooks. This is a great time to just be connected with your teacher. Ask them what you can do. Ask your child's K-2 teacher, how can I support reading at home when they're not getting what they would normally be getting face-to-face in reading and writing and in math. You know, you can work on those basics with your child, but I do like to push, just be patient with your child. For a lot of parents, this is the first time where maybe they're understanding a lot about how their child learns, because your child learning is very different than your child being on YouTube and being on TikTok, you know, so them learning how to do complicated things, it comes across very different virtually. So reach out to your teacher, reach out, get any resources that you can to help you along the way.
Eddie, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and just to piggyback off what Renata said, I'm coming from an upper elementary perspective, 3 through 5, and what I've seen honestly is both extremes, right? Parents that are, I mean, they have literally have their face in the screen, you know, and you know, parents that, you know, for whatever reason can't be there and monitor, and therefore the students are able to get into mischief like 3rd through 5th graders do. But I would say the biggest thing is accountability. You know, you're not going to teach the class, and that's fine. We have teachers for that. But if you can check in with your kids and check on whatever's Google Classroom, Schoology, whatever you're using, make sure their assignments have been turned in, because that's important. A lot of elementary school students, they may try to turn their assignments in, but maybe they didn't click the right button, you know? So it's not always they're trying, you know, they're not trying to be off task, but, you know, this is a new environment for them. So just to kind of check back behind them, you know, in a gentle way, you know, in your own way, just check back with them, make sure that assignments are being turned in and that homework is being done, right? And that they're doing their work to a certain degree. This is a word we use at my school, of excellence, right? Not perfection, because you're learning, you're going to make mistakes, and that's the risk culture we want to build. But you're putting forth that 100% effort in your work, because it's very hard for a teacher to enforce that when they're not there with the students, especially in the upper elementary setting virtually. So if parents could just hold their children accountable and make sure that work is being turned in so that we can know that students are actually, whether students are learning or not. That's what I would say the biggest thing parents can do.
Thank you, Eddie. So as I wrap up our preschool, elementary section, I hear, you know, being mindful with our youngest one, with how much screen time that they actually have. I think that's something also school districts have thought of. I know we specifically thought of. Research says that, you know, up until 4th, 5th grade, students shouldn't have over 3 hours on the screen. And so being very mindful about how much screen time that we have, and also the role that we want parents have is, think about if you dropped your kid off at school, would you be like, if you're doing way more than you would do if you dropped your kid off at school, then you may want to just reevaluate yourself. If you're sitting right beside them, if you wouldn't sit right beside them in school, you know, we want you to check on them. You want to make sure they're on task. We want you to get them up on time, but we're not necessarily looking for you to be the other student in the classroom, because we want to know what your child knows, not giving answers off the side. Like, we want to teachers are still in trying to figure out what your child knows. And so if they don't turn in their homework, or if you're whispering answers in the background, we don't know what they know. So it's super important when we think about that early learning, that we can figure out what we know. And then I'll leave with what Renata said. It's like reading to your child, super important, still important. Having them reading books, super important. From the math lens, which is my background, having them count. They still need to know their math facts. Those are things that all you can do to support, but it doesn't sound like, what I hear is that we're looking for parents to be the teacher for their students. All right, so let's see if that's still true with our middle school. So I'll start with Stephanie, and then we'll go with Dionne to close out about some of that social, emotional side of that.
So a lot of things that were stated for elementary school still work for middle school. We don't want parents to be the teachers. We love the support. Whatever support that you can offer with the scholar would be magnificent. But we don't actually need you to teach them the content because we have live lessons for that. And one of the things, many of you all stated about the screen time, we have actually strategically built in, specifically for my school, where our scholars only have live lessons on Mondays and Wednesdays. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have built in other activities for them to do, where they can still go to teacher's office hours. They could request a one-on-one session. So there's a lot of ways that, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later on, but there's a lot of other ways that the deficits or the supports that students need, those things can still be addressed throughout the school week. Another thing is that the way that parents can help support us is that having up-to-date contact information, because right now the only way that we're contacting parents is through email and through calling posts, or actually calling parents. And so if that information is incorrect in the system, it becomes even more difficult for us to make sure that we're offering all of the support that the student needs during this time, and just keeping them on schedule. Like, most schools send out the student schedules for where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. We were very intentional about including those breaks that are necessary for middle school students. So just making sure that they're following the schedule and getting all of the academic time that is required for them, because right now we don't have any waivers in place at the end of the school year. So it's going to be very important for our scholars to make sure that they're ready for whatever is to come. And even if we have to pivot and go back into schools, that they're ready for that shift and change whenever that change occurs.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, so yes, exact same thing that everyone else has said, that we just really are just looking for parents to support. I'm actually at a school system though where we do have students who come in. They were able to make a choice, so I actually go to work every day. So I see they come in 2 days. One group comes in Monday and Tuesday, and then the other group comes in Thursday and Friday, which can kind of work toward our advantage in regards to like the contact information that Stephanie was talking about. If I can't get in contact with someone, I'm going to send probably a social worker to their house. But similar though, what we tried to focus on within our school system, especially with those students that are all virtual, is, and even with our students that are in the building, is the social emotional learning. Just because there were so many things that happened in addition to COVID. Of course, we were talking about some racial injustices. It was just a lot of things going on. And since I am currently the 6th grade counselor this year, my colleague and I rotate, I have seen a lot of anxiety within our middle schoolers. So it's very important. So what we did was we did some professional learning for our teachers, but also we tried to have them to carry over. We gave resources to our parents. We put it on our website for them to kind of their mindfulness activities. That's like meditation, listening activities that you can do, classroom meetings is what we encouraged our teachers to kind of do, like a check-in, check-out, just to, trying to see how the student is doing. Empathy, because especially if you want to start talking about some of those racial injustices, because some students do want to talk about that and they do want to share their experiences. So all of this is very important, especially while you're learning virtually, for the parent to continue to support. There are some resources out there. It's the collaborative of academic for social emotional learning. They have a lot of resources. It's called CASEL, CASEL.org. They have a lot of resources on their website for parents, educators, everyone. So just make sure you are reaching out, as everyone has said, and that you are supporting. Make sure that parents, that your teachers and other educators know how to get in contact with you, and you know how to get in contact with them as well, just in the event that your child needs some additional support.
Yeah, someone said, could you repeat that website? What was the website you mentioned?
It's CASEL.org.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie and Dionne. So it sounds like a lot of the stuff that we said for our elementary students is still true, and they added another layer about, let's make sure that schools have your correct contact information, because it really is. We don't have the opportunity to see you when you dropping your kid off, or if you picking them up. Like, we really have to make, or we can't send anything home with your child. The child is already at home. So this is the only way that schools can contact you, is if they have the correct contact information. All right, so Shavanda, let's move on to high school.
Bringing up the rear. So with the high school and how parents can support, of course, you're looking at levels of transition. You have your 9th graders who are coming into a high school experience, which is not traditional in this COVID environment. So helping our ninth graders adjust to being a high schooler. From middle school, they are learning that they have greater independence. We need to make sure that they have the external parents would set up the structure for their students. Very important. When you get to your 10th and 11th graders, you want to make sure that they are staying focused, easily distracted by their peers and social media. You want to make sure that they too are following their schedules and structure, and that they are learning to advocate for themselves and reaching out to the teachers on their own. That's a big thing, encouraging our students to have that confidence to self-advocate. As we look at our seniors, you want to make sure this is it. We want to get them over that stage, graduation, diploma in hand, ready for college or career, the next step. So we don't want them to fall victim to the current situation and think that they don't have the structure of their time. We want to make sure that they are keeping up with their schedules as well, that they know that they have the schedule needed for their graduation requirements, because we want to see them across the stage. And then that they are reaching out to their counselors and other resources that are available. A lot of college tours are taking place virtually, making sure that they have the requirements to get that diploma, and that they're in contact with their teachers, because that's still important as they finish out this last year of that K-12 experience. And we want them to do that successfully.
Right. So I heard you say, Shavanda, it's a lot about, it's a lot more onus on the students. And so just parents supporting them to learn some of the independence that's necessary, and that they still need to keep up with their schedule. And then we want them to graduate on time and all of those different things. And if they're a senior, they still need to start thinking about what's next after this year is over with. And so thank you all. And I'm just going to kind of open this to maybe a couple of us to talk about. So we talked about like that support, but how also can parents create an ideal learning environment? So, parents are maybe working from home, or they're maybe not, they may be working somewhere else. But if students are learning at home, what can parents do to set up the ideal? We know ideal is in classrooms, but as much as you possibly can, have an ideal learning environment at home. Any tips?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I mentioned the external structure. No, we don't have the advantage of students physically being in the school building, but I think it's important to designate a specific area of your home or your child's bedroom where they are not in the bed as they same level of motivation. Okay. We still want them to have the same level of motivation and seriousness about school, and assuming that posture, not in the bed, not on the floor. If possible, if they're on the floor, sitting on a pillow, where they're sitting up and ready for school. If you're not able to have a desk for them, maybe a tray table or something where they're able to have the external structure to simulate what a learning would look like. Not a student desk, but something that is a makeshift, something that allows them to have that external structure. All their materials where they need to be. The device is fully charged so that they are not getting kicked off, or poor internet connectivity. So those things are very important, I believe.
Yeah, all of those are great tips. Somebody else, or like maybe.
Well, I was going to say something very similar, just making sure we talked about that at the beginning of the school year, just some of the things that they saw in March, but just making sure that the student is attentive. They are following the schedule. I know a lot of people said that we do have an actual schedule for students to follow. So you may want to print it out so that it is available for the student and for the parent, and making sure that they are sitting somewhere, sitting up, presentable. They don't have a reason not to have their camera on. So we need to make sure that it's the student, that they're using their correct name, not anything that's incorrect or something to make students laugh. So other things you may want to monitor, even if you are not there as the parent and you have someone actually moderating or looking over your child while you in your absence. You want to make sure that when they're using the chat, that they are not just posting things that are inappropriate, because it is still school. We did code of conduct meetings virtually. We did them for virtual and in person, but the code of conduct, kind of addresses that this is still school. I know. And then there's one more thing making sure that your child is actually where they're supposed to be. Like they're not clicking off in a different tab and doing other things on, I think Shavanda mentioned social media and, trying to attend to their peers. So just making sure that they're attentive and ready to learn.
One of the things that I'll say that is extremely important is if you have multiple children who are all doing virtual learning, it's going to be very important for everybody to kind of have their own space as much as possible, if it's possible, because what happens a lot is a lot of the feedback comes through with the different students. And so a lot of times students get very distracted with their lesson because there are all these other different lessons that are going on. Or even with parents that are working in the same space as their student, as their child, can also be a big distractor. But just setting up a space where students have everything that they need at the ready, including their schedule, including their supplies, their water, all of those things, so that they don't have to keep getting up and leaving in the middle of lessons. A lot of schools have already built in scheduled breaks for students. And so knowing that may stop them from eating in the middle of class, because we have had that situation happen a couple of times where class is getting ready to start and students have full meals that are being brought to them right in the middle of class. And so it's going to be really hard for the scholar to focus on eating and focus on whatever the lesson is. And so those are just some things that can help in terms of the learning environment.
Renata, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yes, just real quickly, for the youngest ones that you have that are at home, just keep in mind appropriate screen times when what you feel is appropriate for your family. And when it's a break time, encourage them to get up. Don't use the break time for still being on the iPad doing something. Make them get up, go outside, run around, have a little workout routine maybe for them, or yoga or something that they can do to keep their bodies moving, because in school they would be moving, and just sitting there all day is taxing in and of itself. So allow for them to move around. Don't expect that they're sitting straight the whole time, because they would not be doing that in school. I've even for my own child have a yoga ball that she sits on just to help her, because she can be active at times too. This could be a potentially great time for you to accommodate your child in a way that helps them learn best, other than the structure of having to sit in a desk and be tied to that desk without free reign to just be a little more active.
Absolutely. These are all really great tips. I know me personally, my child did some classes over the summer just for recreation, and she was laying under the dining room table, like she was doing all those different things, like wherever she wanted. But I was very intentional that when school started, like I set up, she has her own area where she's learning, all her supplies are there, and I see the difference just in those, and also the expectations that the teachers have for her in class. And I'm just gonna throw in some other ones that I've heard, like just like if your child was going to school, you may want to fix breakfast and lunch before. So it's a grab and go type of thing. Pack their lunch just like you would if they were going to school. So at that time for that lunch, they can just physically go. Take advantage of the schools who have free lunches for the kids. that I would first was not going to take advantage of that. And then when we decided to, it's been a game changer in our own house, because now I don't have to stop my work to make sure that she's eating breakfast or lunch. She knows, like, and they had a menu and a schedule, so she knew exactly what to eat. So like, take advantage of the things that the schools or other places are offering. I heard people talk about setting a schedule, bedtime. We have a bedtime, just like you would if you were going to school in person. There's a time to wake up. And then even setting a schedule like after school. Like, what are you going to do when school is over? That was something I realized real quick, because like, her school is over at 2:20, but I have to be at work to 5:30. So what is she going to do in that extra time? It's been better now that, you know, they're giving homework and stuff, but that's still 3 hours that needs to be structured time where she's not distracting me or getting kind of something that she's not supposed to, because I am still working and a lot of families are still working. So I think we have to just think about, this just doesn't happen. We have to have a plan as families about how that school day is going to look. And then like, how can we make it best for our children? And then also for parents who are either working somewhere else or working at home. And so one of the things that I want to just, I'm trying to think of, like, when we think about technology, and one person can really answer this as we wrap up, like how to support our parents at home. Is there some suggestions about what device may be best for kids, or what are some technology challenges, or how can people overcome those? So Stephanie, you want to take that question?
Absolutely. One of the things that we have seen, and the studies have shown, is that younger students need to have like touchscreen devices that works best for them, and even to a certain extent, a combination touchscreen and some sort of computer keyboarding device for older children as well. Because what we're finding is that when we have scholars that are doing math, or scholars that are doing like drafting, or an engineering class, construction, any of those kind of things, geometry, they also need the use of touchscreens in order for them to be able to do what they're required to do for their class. And so those types of devices are going to be vital in terms of our students and their learning in schools. But we also have to think about some of our scholars that may have some other needs that they're going to need, such as they may need a mouse, or some other assistive devices that are going to make it work even better for them in the classroom, at home, at the sport. So those are some of the things that we really tried to make sure that we took a look at when we started the school year, to make sure that we had the devices, the right type of devices, not just ordering the cheapest thing that was on the market, but actually ordering things that were going to make it so that the learning experience was going to be able to be enhanced with the technology that we were giving them.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. You brought up really great points. I think we found, as you can see, like even on this Zoom, we've had some technological difficulties. Some of the things, headphones sometimes work better than just talking into your computer. I'm super excited. Like my child's school has asked them to turn in the old headphones, and now they're getting a headset with a mic because it's just like, just to make sure that all kids are being heard. Touch screens definitely for the little ones. I also learned that I had to upgrade, and I know this is not something that everybody has the capability to do, but I had to up the bandwidth on my internet because everything in our house is streaming. And so I would be in a Zoom call and I would get dropped. And it was a lot because of the bandwidth, or everybody, I was like, everybody turn off the phones, the TV, everything, because I'm on this Zoom call, and that's just not always feasible. So we just, I was like, the money I'm saving on gas from driving into the office every day, we're going to add that to bandwidth for our internet, just so we all can be on the things that we need to do. We also learned a tip. I think we talked about this of if the sound is lagging, sometimes you turn the camera off and let the child still talk, they'll come up clear. So if you have some of those issues, and then just advocate for your family with the schools. If you're having, a lot of people are offering different services, hotspots, things of that nature. So just let the school know that you are struggling with the internet, and there should be service and things provided for that. All right. Our last question of just how to support at home, and this is also going with a question that's in the chat. And so Dionne, I'm going to address this to you, is what are some of the social emotional issues students are having? And you kind of started talking about that a little bit. And we also had a question in the chat. How do you best support students who are very social and energetic when doing remote learning? So those extroverts who are so used to that human contact and get their energy off of other people. What are some tips for parents for that? And then the social emotional issues students are having.
So yes, I did kind of touch on it. I've been seeing anxiety both inside and outside of school. That's been the majority. We've talked a lot about making sure that we have culturally responsive classrooms this year, but we have not delved into the topics yet. But we did talk about that. But that's been a lot that I've been seeing. So that's the reason when we talk about the cultural responsiveness, we're looking more about being empathetic. Students may not, of course, have the exact same experience that another student may have just because of socioeconomic, racial, cultural backgrounds. But in the meantime, we using some tactics or some tips to teach empathy, to teach students to really listen to another person's perspective, to try to make sure that they kind of understand someone's perspective. Also, we want to challenge educators. They may have a bias that they may not realize that they had. The anxiety piece, we talked a lot about as far as mindfulness, making sure that we're doing some mindful lessons, meditation, some just kind of reflective lessons. And so one of them really good lesson that my colleague suggested was about mindful eating. So it's like, think about you chew something and you think about what it tastes like, what it feels like, something along that line. So something even as simple as that. There are some YouTube, and I will see if I can find those. He had found a series of YouTube videos that were like 2 minutes or less that you could do with your child at home. Also, it was something else that I was just going to touch on that I just forgot. As far as I was talking about the empathy. There's a website where you can actually connect with a group in a different country. So it's kind of like my mom asked me too. She was like, they don't have pen pals anymore. So it's something similar to pen pals, but it's a virtual pen pal kind of exercise. And I think it's great for everyone, especially when you're talking about recognizing and understanding differences. So that's a good one. Now, if you have a child that is an extrovert that really likes that kind of social, emotional, that really needs that connection, which is great because that's a part of social emotional learning. It talks about relationship skills, really listening and communicating. I think that if they can get involved in some activities that the school may be offering, I know we have like Club Wednesday. We're trying to keep our clubs going. So on Wednesday, no students attend class, but we are trying to get Club Wednesday going. So something, if you can find some type of activity, even if it's not within school, maybe something outside of school. I know I had my child, she's been in chorus in elementary school, but I was like, let's try something different. So I challenged her to join the band. She wanted to play a band instrument. So just some of those things. She actually even chose PE. The school let them choose their connection. So she chose PE. So that's actually a good outlet as well. Nikki and I were actually talking about physical activities last night. And so she was saying that she signed her child up for Girls on the Run, right? Okay. And then I was telling her that I signed my child up for volleyball because she's interested. So I think that there are still some activities that they can do to actually still have that social interaction. And like Renata said, get up on those breaks, have them run around. In March, that's what my daughter was doing. She was doing her own PE around our house. So that would help as well. But in order for them to have those social interaction where they're missing friends, middle school, that's the age where they love their peers and they desire to be with their peers. Even the kids that are in school now, our kids that are in school, they're not getting the typical middle school experience. So, I mean, just because we have all those protocols in place. So I'm just saying, making sure that you can get them involved in some sort of activity, even if it's virtually. And it may be, of course, making sure that they connect with their friends that they did have virtually, doing some check-in, something along that lines as well.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any other or know of any other? Eddie, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So when I say we, I'm talking about Mandisa, the other panelist. That's my wife. We have 3 kids, and one of the things that our middle school child has done, she's in 8th grade, is she's an extrovert. She likes her friends. We live in that kind of a neighborhood in the school district where you can walk from school up to the square and get a icy or whatever. And so all that's kind of over because of COVID. But one thing that she's done is her and her friends on like Friday nights, they'll get on a Zoom call like this. Someone will share their screen and they'll watch a movie together, And I just thought, we didn't give her that idea, but I mean, you do have to give them some freedom to find healthy ways to connect, And right now, I mean, our family, we have a special needs child. So we're very careful about, where we go and where we allow our kids to go, because we don't want to pick up COVID and bring it back to the house. But yeah, so that's one, I think, genius way. I mean, even if you're elementary school and you set up the Zoom call with, other parents, right? There's still ways for them to connect and for us to kind of leave that space and let them have those conversations. Because think about it, right now, if they're virtual, they can't have those side conversations and that little banter they have at recess and at lunch. Think about that, right? They can't have lunch conversations, cracking jokes, having fun. They can't do that. So they have to have an outlet. I love the sports idea. Our district has shut all sports down, so that's not an option for us. But actually going outside and stuff, but finding ways for them to connect with their peers, I think is just, that will, I believe, I'm not a counselor, so I'll defer to Dionne on this, but I believe that it'll help to lower some of that anxiety.
And this is Stephanie. And so one of the things that I committed to my scholars, because I'm actually transitioning this at the start of the year, I was both the science teacher and the assistant principal. And so what I committed for my scholars is that I was going to take some days and actually have lunch with them where they could bring their lunch and come in and we just sit and we just have conversation. And so they were like so excited about that whole idea of being able to just sit and have conversations that had absolutely nothing to do with school. And so that's another way to keep them kind of keep reconnected to them, but it's also another outlet for them to be able to have conversations that they need and want to have in a safe space.
Absolutely. And I also think, and I literally before this call had this conversation with my husband, is our child is an introvert. So she will be just as happy just being in her room watching TV. And I think you also have to push the introverted children to have connections too, because, when it first hit, I realized from March until when we went home to Tennessee, she had not played with any children in like 2 or 3 months, and so that's not healthy either. So we were just talking about like, how can we push her to also have interactions, because she needs to have those interactions. I appreciate, as Stephanie said, that her school, they have lunch bunches. And so they get one of the teachers or the assistant principal plays music, they eat lunch together. Sometimes the principal's on there talking to them. And so just to give that interaction with things. But yeah, I'm with all of the things everybody said. Even when your kids don't create that environment, we as parents sometimes have to make that. Whether they're extrovert or the introvert, they still need that social interaction, just like we all do. And we all crave it as well, no matter which category we fall in. All right, so we're going to shift just a little bit to also talk about, like, what if we have what about our students that have any kind of speciality? What about our special needs students? How can we support them? And so I'm going to pass it to Shavanda, and then if Eddie and Mandisa, you spoke a little bit about that, Eddie, by having a special need child, about how families can support them. But and so I want you to think about that question, about what parents need to know, how can they advocate for their parents, and then how they can support their children. I'm sorry. And the last thing I was going to say before that is, when we think about the community or community organizations, whether that's churches, like, you can support, and I'm going to specifically say families and teachers. So if you know a family in your community that may not have the best internet or may not have the devices, like, what can you do to support, those families? If you know a teacher that doesn't have a second monitor in their home, get a couple of your friends to purchase a second monitor for them. That is a game changer as a teacher, because it's hard to teach a lesson and see the students and all that stuff on one screen. And so I'm blessed to have a second monitor in my home, but everybody is not blessed to have that. So even that small thing is a win for so many teachers to be better teachers from home. And so just think about, how can you support with hotspots, or, like, hey, I know your family is struggling. I know you have 5 kids at your home. I have this extra iPad that I'm not using here. Let's just think about ways to support families and teachers as we go through this. So we're going to shift to think about what should parents know, if their students possibly have an IEP, and then, like, how can families be supported with their students with any specialties. So we'll start with you, Shavanda.
All right. Okay. So Nikki mentioned IEP. That's an individualized education plan for students who have been identified as having disabilities. And that runs the gamut. It falls under state and federal law as to how the public education agency serves those students. And students with individual education plans or 504 plans that may require some kind of accommodation to the learning environment, teachers are still responsible for implementing some level of instructional accommodations in this environment. Of course, again, pivoting from March and comparing March to the start of this school year, school systems were more intentional, as Nikki said, about making sure that supports were in place for students with individual or special needs, so we could ensure that their learning, while it may be different, they're still able to access what they need to show progress. I think I referenced the academic integrity. To that extent, with our students who have special needs or require additional supports, it was important that teachers and school systems work together with families to environment. You can't do everything and collect the data to show the progress that you would in a face-to-face. So being in touch with your student's case manager, your child's case manager, or if you don't know who that person is, talking to the administrator so they can point you in the right direction to get in touch with that provider to make sure, if it's speech services or if it's occupational therapy or physical therapy or additional resources such as assistive technology that they need to be successful at home while learning virtually, that's available.
Thank you, Shavanda. Anything you want to add from the parent side, Eddie or Mandisa, or both of you? I don't want to limit you to one or the other. Either both of you can speak.
My wife is knowledgeable.
I will say, because I'm the one that's pretty much on with her, like a morning meeting, I'm just being more of like an advocate for your child with special needs, because you're at home and it is different from being in the school setting. And Milan she's more sociable. So she's kind of like, she is 10, but she's kind of like actually like on the 3-year-old level. So we have to be mindful about how long she's on the computer. She did have an IEP meeting, I think it was Thursday, and we talked to them about how her attention span when she's on, like they have a Wellness Wednesday. So it's more like just specials. And there was a day where she was in art class, and it's a little bit more, it's more kids in the class and the teachers. So then like her special needs class, so she kind of like just took off. It's too much. So they told us, I'm sorry, that's Millie. Sorry.
I know you're talking about her, so she wanted to be in the conversation.
They told us that it was okay, that it wasn't mandatory for her to be in there in the special classes. And then too, it's kind of hard for her to do some of like the work, like her physical education. I'm not even sure how she does phys ed in school, but since she's been here, we just been taking her out on bike rides. So we're more like an advocate for her, what she can do at home versus what she can do in school. Yeah, you have any?
I think that's good. I think that's just important. I think that's something that Shavanda, said as well, is that parents, by law, we still have to do the things that's best for students, but it's also, families need to advocate for their child. And that's all children. All parents need to know that they need to advocate for their child. And if your child needs assistance, parents are our customers, students are our customers, in education. And so if, for equitable education, we have to do what's best for all children. So advocate for your child to make sure that they get all the things as much as possible in this virtual setting. We know that we can't send someone necessarily to your house, but we can do some things and make it as conducive as possible for your child. All right, so we're going to wrap up with talking about safety in a virtual environment. So one of the things that, I think is important for all of us, and we kind of talked about, is that, as educators, we are mandated reporters. And so it is our job. We will lose our certification and our licenses if we do not report anything that shows neglect, abuse, or any of those type of things. Also, just thinking about, we are virtually, and how can we make sure that students are safe? So I wanted to open it up to think about what safety precautions have been put in place for virtual classes, to make sure classrooms maybe are not hacked by outsiders, but also just thinking about the safety and the things that we can tell families about, since we are mandated reporters, the things that if we see, we are mandated to report. So I don't know who wants to kick off that question.
I will jump in.
Then we'll go to you, Stephanie.
As Nikki stated, all certified educators are state mandated reporters. So if we observe, or if teachers observe anything, be it something they see or something they hear, that is our prompt to engage our social workers. So in my district, what happens, students are not required to be on screen, but they must participate. And that is a safety thing in the years home life or background in their room looks like. And so that's a way to encourage students not to tease or pick on. And that leads me into the bullying. We have to be careful with the safety of our students because they are in a virtual environment with cyberbullying. We want to make sure that they are, communicating with you if they are not in a classroom setting where, it's their teacher or they're talking to the counselor, or they're even can ensure that they are comfortable in their.
All right, I think I'm gonna sum up what I heard you say, Shavanda. I heard you say about, if the camera is on, whatever, like, where I think you said it's not mandatory in your school district, but, a lot of classrooms, the camera is on. And so just knowing about that, we can see as educators the things that happen, we can hear the things in the background. So just being mindful of that. I think there was something else you said that I just forgot that quickly. Oh, about bullying. Cyberbullying is serious, that even though we're not in physical school, your child can still get in serious trouble because there are anti-bullying laws in this country. And so just know that we are still mindful of that. Stephanie, what else would you like to add? And then I think Dionne, you may have something to add to that piece too.
So I know that one of the things, a lot of schools and school districts were very intentional about what kind of platform they were using and what were some of the advantages and disadvantages of those platforms. And so the majority of the platforms that are out there have the ability for teachers to record their lessons and sessions. And so just being mindful that, thinking that everything is being recorded, coming from that mindset will help not only curb a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing in a lot of students, but it's also going to curb other behaviors that may pop up as well in terms of teachers being mandated reporters. But to say all that, I know for our school, we use Zoom, and we use Zoom because it has the waiting room feature where all the students have to come into the waiting room first before they're even let into class. And it has the ability to mute all mics and, remove entities or shut down cameras and things of that nature in order to provide the best learning environment for all students. And so those are some of the ways that we utilize the features because Zoom wasn't set up for educational purposes. And so, but there's a lot of features that are within the program that is very advantageous to the virtual learning environment. So just utilizing those kind of things really help make everything work smoothly and run smoothly within the class. And so to that effect of what Shavanda was talking about in terms of other things, knowing that we're monitoring email, we're monitoring the chats, we're monitoring all of these things that are connected to the school for things such as cyberbullying. So just understanding that, there is a certain level of privacy, but there isn't a certain level of privacy. And these things are because we're taking the safety and security of all students very seriously.
All right, Dionne, did you want to add something to that?
Same thing along those lines is that, we're making sure that students access Zoom through our platform, our Schoology platform, so that to monitor security, make sure that so no one is getting in. Also, we're making sure our students, I think, for the most part, do have to have their cameras on. And even in with my daughter's school, they have to have their cameras on, but they also have a platform where they access their class as well. Additionally, we try to make sure as counselors that we are available, just because in our school system, we're the ones that teachers normally report to. So we just try to make sure that the student knows that we're available, because we have talked about how difficult this has been in regards to a student, I don't want to say privacy, but a student being able to share that they may be in an unsafe environment, considering that their parent may be right there. So we just try to make sure that they know that we are available. We try to make sure that they know how to contact the other colleagues. So that was another safety security that we had in place, just to make sure that we both were covered as well. The student's camera wasn't on, but we just talked over Zoom just to try to make sure that they were safe. So those are some of the things that we are making sure. I saw something in the chat about, they said that a student was suspended for playing with a Nerf gun, and was that response warranted? And I think it just, I'm gonna say it's gonna be based on the school system. We have a code of conduct. I know all school systems have a code of conduct. And so although it's a toy gun, it is, still some display of violence, and it just depends on the school system in regards, now Shavanda probably can talk about this, in regards to rendering the consequence. So I don't render consequences as a counselor, but I know that's what my assistant principal and principals use, our code of conduct, as a guide to determine what the disciplinary action may be. So I can't say if it was necessarily warranted or not, but it is based on the code of conduct. There are certain guidelines that we expect students to adhere, even virtually in school, and also, when they're in school. So those are the same guidelines that we follow. Believe it or not, even when we were in school, we used to have to tell students, hey, the bus stop is still school. So, they're like, we're gonna fight at the bus stop. No, that's still school. So bullying, all of those things that we kind of touched on, all of that is still a part of school, and we still take those still very serious in regards to student safety and student discipline.
Yeah. Anyone else wanted to add anything to this part about safety?
I just wanted to add about just safety, and just, as parents, just being aware that your child is, if they're doing virtual lessons, that they are live and their camera is on, just being aware of what you have on or what you do not have on. What children in the background have on or do not have on. It's usually safer to have the background as a wall, so that there's less likely of a chance of those things happening, because people are at home. Also, just a couple of times I've seen this, just as parents, frustration levels are rising as they're seeing their children sometimes suffering or sometimes not answering things the way that they want them to answer, and just kind of lashing out with hitting them or popping them or those types of things on camera. Teachers, if it goes to a certain, teachers have to report those things. And our judgment can't come into view whether we felt it was appropriate or not. It's likely seen by a whole classroom of people. And, those type of things have to be reported. I know in reference, I don't know if this was the same story about the 12 or the 13-year-old boy with the Nerf gun, but it's usually difficult to speak on situations that you don't have all the details on, because normally teachers ask several times, please put that away, stop, do not bring that. There's usually a lot of things that happen before those consequences come into play. But there was a story where a kid was surrounded by guns in the background of his home, which they were probably legally obtained. But if something happens, or if a kid picks up one of those and then something happens and that wasn't reported, we lose our license and are unable to work forever. I mean, we've worked hard to get here. So that is a very big deal. So just be aware, just understand that everybody's just trying to do the best they can. Everybody's just trying to do their job.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that blurred line, like it is school happening, but it's at home. And so I know some families feel like, well, I'm at home and I can be free and I can do this and this is what's at my home. But at the same time, your child is in school, and it will be different if I was just having a one-on-one conversation with your child. But since there's other families and some other family may be offended, or maybe a family doesn't expose their children to guns, and then here they pop up on the screen, and then there's the whole arsenal behind this one child. Like all of those things, it is this like blurry line between home and school, but I think it's just best to err on caution. And so to make sure I think that goes back to that ideal environment. So have an environment for your child to work in possible where there's a wall behind them, or it's not a door where people may just be walking in and then, caught on camera, or things of that nature. Just know that, even though it is your home, educators are mandated reporters. And also think about it like, you couldn't come to the classroom and pop your child anyway if they were in school. We would still have to, like, if you came in fussing or whatever in class, like that is still a value, you can't do that. So just know that same is pretty much true, even when you're home. And as Renata said, we understand that frustration is rising. And I think that also goes to, I sit on this panel, we have almost 120 years of educational experience. And so one of the things that I know is kids sometimes play us about what they can and cannot do. And so sometimes they are best when they are just left alone to be in that classroom to do what they're supposed to do. Whereas if I know mama, daddy, or grandmama, whoever's sitting beside me, now all of a sudden I'm helpless, And so it may just be best. I've learned this to be true with my own. Like, I thought I was going to play this role first couple of days of school to get her settled and all this stuff. And what I realized, what she really needed was for me to leave the room. Like she needed me to just be, go ahead back to my space. She be in her space and she's doing what she's supposed to do. So just think about, our kids also using you as a crutch so that you have that, they can have that ideal situation, and then you won't have to worry about, frustrations rising and teachers catching things on camera that we shouldn't be seeing, that we put in this awkward position. But as Renata said, like, we will lose our certifications, our license forever. And so the thing that we signed up to do to educate children, we will never be able to do that again. So, and we got to choose between livelihood for our own families and protecting you because you decided to pop your child upside the head. We're going to choose ourselves. I'm sorry. Because we got to support our own family. So just think about those things, or, you just forget to walk by and we see more skin than we want to see for your child's kindergarten, kindergarten classroom. Just think about those things. Because like I said, we're mandated reporters. I'm gonna keep saying that we are mandated reporters. So as we wrap up our time together, I'm gonna allow everybody, I don't see any questions so far. So if you have a question, you need to hurry up, put that in the chat. But I'm going to allow everyone to just what is anything that you want to, that maybe we haven't covered, or you want to reiterate. What is one thing you want to leave families with as we close out this panel? So we'll start. Oh wait, I hear. All right, and maybe Dionne, you can tackle that one. Like, what are some ways that anxiety shows up with smaller kids? Or anybody actually.
Yeah, anybody may be better.
I'm going to you because you're the counselor, but anybody actually can.
Yeah, I was going to say anybody, because I haven't worked with the babies in a while. However, I will say probably avoidance, just atypical behavior. I've had my stomach hurts. I'm not feeling well. A lot of time, of course, they can't go to the clinic, but things along those lines where they just, you're like, well, what's going on now? Why can't you go to school, or why don't you want to go to school? So some very atypical behavior, just especially like when I say like the tummy aches, the just things as far as health, like, there's normally not anything wrong with them, but all of a sudden they can't go. And I say a lot of avoidance tasks. I can't do this. I don't want to do this.
You go to the restroom.
Yes, go to the restroom crying. I need a water break. So a lot of that shows up in younger kids, and those are the things when you know that it's not something that you typically see in that particular child. I mean, we'd say avoidance, but sometimes maybe they may go the opposite extreme as well. So you want to just make sure that the behavior, if it's atypical of what they normally do, especially when it comes to school, then they may be experiencing some anxiety surrounding school.
And yes, I agree that avoidance. I do some tutoring on the side as well, and I know when a session is winding up, even if we're not done with the work, because the headaches come and that type of stuff. In person, I used to be like, come on, let's do 2 more problems. But I mean, anxiety now, I mean, that's a very real, thing that's happening. But just to kind of throw another wrinkle in there, since this is a church, webinar, it's a good time to teach your students about prayer. If you are a believer, teach them how to pray, teach them how to journal, and give them those tools to cope with life. They're going to need that anyway, right? And so now is a good time to teach them. I mean, now is a good time to learn yourself, how to deal with your own anxiety, because sometimes as parents, we can pass off that anxiety unknowingly. We can, you got your book, you got this, I'm guilty. I'm guilty now. We can just, wag that finger, and they're like, man, I'm just trying to go to school, But now is a good time to maybe even as a family, have some family time, just to have them talk, decompress, get some ice cream or, whatever you guys like, and just have those times where, the floor is open to deal with that. And also prayer. It now was a good time to, to have them build that prayer life and, learn that 23rd Psalm. When things get hard, they have that to pull from, So I would say that don't forget about the spiritual side when you're talking about dealing with anxiety as well.
So I'll jump in just real quick. I think one of the things that's very important is utilize the resources that are around you. A lot of organizations are offering free tutoring. I know the public library is also offering. They have a virtual tutor that was in place actually before COVID started. So that's another thing that can be utilized. A lot of teachers are offering one-on-one, small group sessions, office hours, just utilizing that to their greatest advantage, and allowing our students to be self-directed. We have to push them to that, because that's a skill that they're going to need to have as an adult, especially the middle and high school students. Teaching them how to advocate for themselves, and the self-direction is very, very important.
Sorry, I'm just talking. Thank you, Stephanie. We have a request to create like a resource list that we're going to put on the church website about some of the things that we talked about, and then just some of the other ones that we can think of for parents to have, like resources to help them navigate these uncertain times when it comes to education. But hopefully parents are walking away feeling a little more empowered than they did when they started this. So I want us to close out with everyone saying that last little bit of advice or suggestions or whatever it is you want to lay on the hearts of families that are watching. So we'll start with high school and go down this time. So we'll start with Shavanda.
Wow, I was thinking I had time.
Sorry.
Okay, so thank you all for joining in. I would say that continue to be your child's biggest advocate. Tap into resources that are available. Ask people in your extended network if you don't know. In this time, we see an increase in social media and peers being the influence. Being people of faith, I would just encourage you to not allow social media and peers to be the primary faith. Let's lean on that. Let's take it back to that foundation and help our children to be the people that we know God has made us to be.
Amen. All right, we'll go with Stephanie, then Dionne.
So I think the last thing I want to just get, we all are, so during this time, beyond this time, it's going to take everybody in order to educate our children. And so everybody has to have a hand in building up our tribe and building up our community. And so just utilizing a lot of the resources, reaching out to schools, reaching out to other parents, and just other community members in order to understand some of the things that are out there that can really support during this time is vitally important, because there's a lot of things that are going underutilized during this time. You know, food pantries, food giveaways, things of that nature that really can be beneficial for all within the community.
I agree with everything that's said. I would say what support is one of the main things that I would say. Make sure that you're supporting your child and supporting your children through advocacy and through resources, and communication, just making sure that that communication line is open as well, that you are communicating if there is a need or if you have a concern or if you just want to communicate and say, well, thank you, I appreciate you. I think all of that helps, and it helps you to kind of know what's going on and help keeps you organized as well as your child organized. So just making sure that you advocate, communicate, support, and utilize the resources. Those would be the things that I would say.
All right, thank you. We'll go with Renata, then we'll go with Eddie, then we'll go with Mandisa.
My last little piece of advice would just be that, research supports that kids don't learn in environments where they don't feel safe. So even if you as a parent are, I've seen both of the extremes, just forcing hurry up, get this figured out, or you're pressing for more work constantly. You want more rigorous work. You want this, you want that, there's just a lot going on in the world right now. And yes, supplement and make sure that your kids get what they need. But make sure, as Eddie was saying, that they get what they need physically too. Get outside. We just downloaded this All Trails app. I'm not even a nature person. And I'm like, we need to get outside more. We need to get our bodies moving more. That affects your whole aura as a person. So just be patient with yourselves, be patient with your child, get outside and be active and just, make it day to day.
Hey, so yes, thank you all for joining us. The Bible talks about that all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and that are called according to His purpose. So we know that COVID and the pandemic and everything that's happening will COVID specifically, which is the reason why we're learning virtually. We know that, it's been a terrible thing and a hard thing, but I challenge you to most of us are spending more time with our kids than we ever have. And that's a blessing. And so I encourage you to take advantage of that, get to know your kids even more. Even going on those walks is not just exercise. Find the balance between connection and correction, okay? Don't go overboard with the correction, but, don't neglect the correction just to try to maintain a connection. I hope that makes sense, But definitely take advantage of this time to spend with your family. I mean, it could be tough, all being in the same house at one time all day, but I mean, man, it can be a blessing as well, because you have your family right there to really instill those values in them before social media can do it. Come on, somebody. So yeah, that's all I have.
I'll say just continue to be your, like everybody said, be your child's biggest advocate. And again, spend time with your family, especially the little ones. They need it. A lot of them don't understand what's going on. Some of them do. I've, heard some parents tell me that, I need to wear a mask. Just continue to talk to them so they'll understand what's going on. That's really all I have.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I think mine is, I just keep telling people to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, give your children grace, give the schools grace. Like everything is, we are doing something that has never been done before. And so everyone is trying to do it the best way they can. And I'm preaching to myself as well. Sometimes I'm like, dang, it is terrible that I just let her watch TV all the time. And then I'm like, well, okay, acknowledge it, do better. Now I'm pushed to do some walks, do some game time, do some, coloring together, some other stuff, just to take advantage of this time, but also just give everybody just need to exhale and give each other grace. And so on behalf of Mosaic Church and our pastor, Broderick Santiago, we want to thank you all for tuning in to our educational forum. I really hope that everyone got something out of this. I appreciate these panelists, this almost 120 years of educational expertise that came at you this afternoon. And so just thank you so much for tuning in. And we pray that you have a very blessed and the best school year you ever had, no matter what's going on. That's what we pray that it's going to happen this school year. That is just take advantage of this time and do the best you can and leave the rest in God's hands. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great day.